preached it, Hippo dubbed it the Sermon on the Mount. And it is interesting because Jesus in this sermon will do a lot of things that kind of resemble things that Moses did. Okay? And that's interesting. So, the sermon is actually, in our English Bibles, it is Matthew chapter 5, 6, and 7. So, 3 chapters. Okay, so, and Jesus will be teaching on a variety of subjects. Okay? So, we're going to be reading from the NIV, which is the New International Version of the Bible. And we do invite you to have your Bibles at your side, because we will be looking at these scriptures from time to time and looking at the sermon in its entirety. Okay? So, as we talked about earlier, is that this sermon has a lot of interpretations. Okay? There are 36 active interpretations of this Sermon on the Mount. For us, we're going to dial in on 1 or 2 views. And one thing we're going to talk about with this sermon is that people who are non-Christians, even non-Christians, took this sermon to heart and really, for example, Mahatma Gandhi cited this sermon as one of the things that really propelled him and helped him as he fought for freedom and justice. So it's not just for Christians. Non-Christians have found a lot of just energy in this message to talk about societal wrongs and justice and things like that. Okay? So now, Jesus is going to talk about a kingdom. And this is one of the things that we need to understand about this sermon, is that Jesus, in preaching this, is like giving what we might call a manifesto, where he begins to demonstrate to people what he is about. And he talks about what he believes, because he knows that he's a king. But you really can't be a king unless you have a kingdom. And you can't have a kingdom unless you have citizens and subjects. So this Sermon on the Mount is really a king talking to his subjects about how they should live in his kingdom. So that's the Sermon on the Mount. To his subjects about how then should you live if you are members of this kingdom. Now, it's an upside down kind of world that Jesus is in, because the world that he will preach this sermon in already has a king. And when Jesus was at the end of his life, and when he was being interviewed by Pilate, Pilate asked him, "Are you a king?" And Jesus told him, "My kingdom is not of this world. If it were, then my subjects would come and fight for me." So, it's an upside down kind of kingdom. It's not the kingdom that even the Jews expected to come, because their expectations of Messiah were that he was going to come in and throw off the yoke and the oppression of the Roman government. So, when Jesus begins to talk about the kingdom, we're in Matthew chapter 5, verse number 1. I want to read this to you. Now, when Jesus saw the crowds, he went up on a mountainside and sat down. His disciples came to him, and he began to teach them. Okay? Now, this is very similar to when Moses was at Sinai. If you read the, I believe it's the 19th chapter of the book of Exodus, it talks about how Moses gathered the people, and they were not just gathered as a crowd, but they had the priests and the Levites and the leaders, and then the people. Jesus, when he gathers the people, notice how he gathers them. First of all, he brings his disciples nearer to him. And then after the disciples, he brings the crowd. So what Jesus will be talking about is a message that is both for the disciples and for the crowd. Okay, so it's one of these messages that will be filled with what we call double entendre messages that may have one or more, two or more meanings. Jesus had a great ability to look at people and to be able to speak in code where some people could understand it and the people who it wasn't for, it just went over their head. Okay? So you'll see a lot of that in this sermon. Now, he has them, he goes up on a mountain, and wish I could illustrate this to you, but what he does is he assumes a position of a teacher. Now, I'm teaching, and the position I'm assuming is I'm standing. Jesus, when he assumed the position of a teacher, it says he sat down. Can you imagine? You got a crowd that's thronging all around you, and maybe everybody wants to see you, but instead of standing up, he sits down. All right? I had an experience about a year, about 2 years ago. One of my, a friend of mine is a pastor. He's getting older now, and they asked him to preach. And he preached from a chair, sitting down. For me, it was a different experience because I had never seen him not preach standing up. So, can you imagine Jesus is preaching, but he's not standing, and he's seated. Okay? Now, he begins to open his mouth, and if you have what's called a red letter edition of the Bible, that's a New Testament that has the words of Jesus written in red. You will find it in chapter 5, 6, and 7. Just about everything in there is red. It's red because these are all the words of Jesus. But the only thing that's not red is verse number 1. Okay? Because, you know, it's all about what Jesus has to say. And the ending where Matthew gives his commentary. Okay? Yes. So, the first thing out of Jesus' mouth on the Sermon on the Mount is what? What does he say? Blessed are the poor in spirit. First word out of his mouth is blessed. Blessed. Okay? So, when you hear the word blessed, what do you think? We hear the word blessed. Grace, favor, mercy, grace, grace, abundance. Okay, blessed. Okay, so there's a lot going on in this word. We're going to try to unpack this word because for this sermon, the first thing for Jesus to say is blessed. A lot of times, especially in our culture, we have an understanding of blessed, right? First thing that comes to a lot of people's mind is financial security, right? Another thing that might come to people's mind is being in good health, right?
Yes.
What about happiness? Matter of fact, a lot of times, especially in our culture, we have interpreted the word blessed as being happy, happiness. Here's another one, success, success. All right? And we heard one of you say earlier, favor, God's favor. And here's another one that we're going to be digging deeper into, is God's presence, regardless of your circumstance. Now, that's not the definition that most Christians carry. Okay? A lot of times when Christians talk about blessed, we probably talk about financial security, good health, success, and happiness. Jesus is going to turn this whole concept upside down. Okay? And let's look at what it really means. Okay? The word blessed. All right, so we want to find out, do we have any folk online who had questions or comments about what it means to be blessed? Okay, so don't forget, if you're online with us and you got a question or comment, we're looking for you, and we'll patch them right in, and we'll do it that way, okay? So, what do we really mean, okay? Now, there's a Greek word, makarios, M-A-K-A-R-I-O-S, okay? Now, this Greek word is about living under the favor of God, okay? Blessed, okay? When we say blessed, this is not a formulaic thing. It's not, okay, this is how I get stuff from God. That's not what Jesus is saying. But he said blessed. He said, if you do X, Y, Z, I'm going to take care of you. That's not what he's talking about. And he's not really talking about some timeless truth. But what Jesus is saying when he arrives and the first thing out of his mouth is blessed is there's a new kingdom coming, and the kingdom has arrived. Okay? And the kingdom really, as we go backwards, the kingdom is really about God's presence in your life regardless of your circumstance. So if that's the case, then it is possible to be blessed and not have financial security. It's possible to be blessed and not have good health. It's possible to be blessed and not have happiness or success if we interpret blessed to mean that God is present in my life regardless of what I'm going through. Now, imagine you saying I'm blessed. And now you mean I'm just grateful to have God's presence in my life no matter what I'm going through. Because most people, when they say I'm blessed, they're hinting that something good is happening. Or something good is about to happen. All right? But Jesus is talking about, and he will launch into this in his sermon, is about being poor. Okay? Not having success. Alright? And it's a kind of like one of these sermons where people gather to hear him, and we start talking, people immediately start scratching their heads because this is not the way they taught what blessed means. It's not the way a lot of us in church have been taught about what it means to be blessed. Okay? When we say I'm blessed, thank God I'm blessed. We're like, I got financial security, I got good health, I got happiness, I got success, and I got the favor of God. But for this sermon, Jesus says, blessed means that God is present in your life regardless of your circumstance. All right? And maybe that's why the old saints could shout, didn't have a dollar. That they could be happy, and if you knew their story, you could scratch in your head, why they shouting? What are they happy about? Okay? They're blessed. All right? So there it is. All right? That's, okay. So here's the point, okay? If Jesus says that the poor, those who grieve and mourn, the meek, those who have been persecuted are blessed, right? Have we misunderstood what it means to be blessed? What do you think? What do you think? Do you think we've misunderstood what it means to be blessed?
Yes, I do, because if he's saying that Jesus is saying it's poor, he has that understanding. But to us, if he's saying somebody's poor, they can't be blessed. Or if they're grieving, they can't be blessed because they're going through something really, really bad. So they really don't understand that there's a blessing that he has given them. But they don't understand it. We don't understand it. We think it's really bad.
All right. So we're going to keep going back to this, but while I'm close enough, I can just backspace a couple times and help us to get to this. Because this is how we're going to have to radically redefine ourselves. That blessed for us is going to have to mean that God is present regardless of my circumstance. Okay? Because when I start tying my being blessed to my circumstance, then sometimes I'm not going to be blessed. Okay?
Yes.
Because if I lose something that I love, if I lose my job, I lose my house, I lose my family, I lose, then if those are the things that made me feel blessed, what happens when I lose my financial security? What happens when my body gets sick? What happens when I'm no longer happy or no longer successful? Or I don't look like the people who walk around and they say they got the favor of God on them. And you looking at, okay, when does it happen to me? But remember this. Jesus uses this term, blessed, to say to people, God's presence, regardless of your circumstances. Okay? All right. Now, here's the big idea, okay? Jesus on and out, okay? Here's the big idea of this sermon that Jesus preaches. He calls his followers to live according to the values of God's kingdom. And then they're supposed to take those values and visibly carry them into the world. So he's basically giving them this pep talk, this rally, telling them about this is who you are, this is how you should live, and because you're a citizen of my kingdom, I'm sending you into this upside down world to go in and reach it for me. And the way you reach people in the world is you start living like you are a citizen of another kingdom. So you take the values that Jesus preaches about in this sermon and you walk into a world like this and you begin to preach the good news of Christ. Okay? Does that make sense? Now, a lot of people look at this sermon. We tell you that 36 ways that people have interpreted this sermon. One of the ways that people interpret this sermon is that what Jesus was really doing is that he was giving out a list of do's and don'ts. blessed, or happy if you do this, happy if you do that. Don't do this. Don't. It was said do this, but I say do that. And so they said what Jesus was really doing was he was giving them a laundry list of things that you do if you want to get in the kingdom. But that's not the story. The story is Jesus is coming and saying to the people, I'm the king. I have a kingdom. You are my subjects. This is what I expect from you as my representative. Okay? Now, underneath all of this Sermon on the Mount is an assumption. Okay? I want to talk about that for a minute. One of the assumptions that guides this sermon is that Jesus is talking to people who have become citizens of his kingdom. We call that, in today's vernacular and parlance, we call that being born again. Okay? Now, people who are not even Christians get a lot of benefit from this sermon. Because you can just share this sermon on the Mount with somebody who never met Jesus, and it can radically transform their lives. But underneath it is Jesus is talking to people who have become citizens of his kingdom. And he said, okay, so now you're a resident, now your passport says that you belong to this kingdom. This is how we act in the kingdom. All right? So, it's not just a list of commands. And this is why it is different than Moses' pronouncement. Because when Moses went on the mountain, and when he talked to the people, what he gave the people was a list of commands. We even call those commands the 10 Commandments. Jesus said, no, I'm giving you a list of commands. I'm not erasing the things that Moses said, because what Jesus did, he said, you heard it said, thou shalt not commit adultery. That's one of the commands in the list. But he said, I say, if a man looks at a woman with lust of his heart, that he has violated the command. So Jesus said, look, I'm not coming to restate that or change the commands. I'm not here to give you a list of do this, do that. I'm here to tell you that you're already a citizen of my kingdom, and this is how kingdom will carry on their business. Does that make sense? All right. Anybody got a question on anything we talked about so far? This is what we would call, when I was doing undergrad, and what then was called Jersey City State College. I don't know what we call it now. We had a summer session. We had 2 summer sessions. We had summer session 1 and session 2. Now, I forget which one it was, but one was like 3 weeks, and the other was like 2. I took one of the 2-week sessions. Okay? I took biology. All right? I'll never forget. I took biology, summer session 1, 2 weeks. The textbook was 500 and some pages like this. Diagram with, I had the pictures of the body with these pages that were like plastic. Underneath was the skeleton. You turn to the next page, you got skin on the body. You turn to the next, you got the heart and the lungs. You're good. And I'll never forget, first day, the professor says, okay, I want y'all to read up to page 125. I was swimming. I was underwater. I was drowning. Because little did I know that in the class where I took the summer intensive, I was the only non-medical person.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
They ain't had no study labs big enough for me. I get Dr. Tyler laughing over there. I was underwater. told me when I went in, you could just test it out. The good thing about this course, there's no test at the end. It is intense. But we're not going to do that to you, okay? So, it's not just a list of commands. So, a lot of people look at this Sermon on the Mount, and Jesus says, judge not. He says a lot of things that could be interpreted as commands, but it is not a list of moral commands, okay? What it is, and this is what we've been alluding to, is that this sermon is really the king talking about this kingdom. And he's going to make the case that my kingdom is different than the kingdom y'all are living in. Okay? Now, there's a dimension, and when we talk about the book of Revelation, we talk about prophecy, we talk about eschatology. John Stott, great preacher, scholar, wrote extensively on this idea of the already and the yet not. The already and the yet not. When Jesus preaches the Sermon on the Mount, he's talking about a lot of stuff that has already happened. But there's a lot of it that has not yet happened. That's why we can do a series on this, and you'll find that of all the things Jesus preached, there are more sermons on the Sermon on the Mount than anything. Because it talks about what has already happened, but then it also talks about what is yet to come. So we got this already and yet not. And that's a theme of eschatology and prophecy. So the kingdom is about, it has arrived. But if you listen to the sermon for the first time, it hasn't come. The kingdom has arrived, but if you showed up for this study, there are elements of the kingdom that you can look at and say, we're not there yet. We saw the manifesto, we saw what he wanted to happen, but it hasn't happened. So the first century hearer hears a lot of, yeah, already, yes, I can feel that. The 21st century hearer says, oh, that's future. Because that's the nature of the Bible, that's the nature of prophecy, eschatology, is that it always has this dimension about dealing with what has already happened and then also focusing on the not yet. So Jesus talked about, yeah, y'all know about the kingdom because you know about Rome. You know about the kingdom because you know about ancient Israel. But let me tell you about what has not happened. And he begins to talk about his arrival. Okay? All right. Now, more about this sermon. Jesus is not just telling people how to act. It's more. Okay? And if you're making notes, this I think was one of the great parts of this sermon that really challenged me. Is that, yes, I could teach this, I could present it, and we could say Jesus is talking to his subjects about how they should act, how they should behave. But Jesus is doing something else. Okay? And here's the subtlety of it. Let me show you this. What Jesus is saying to the people who sat down on the mountain, this is how people who have been transformed, how they act. Okay? Not just how you should behave, because you can't behave like this unless there is something that has transformed you. Or as the old folks say, if you've been dug up by the plowshares of the gospel, that you have been changed and the Holy Spirit has redirected your life. You can't live this kind of life just by obeying some rules. You're going to need more than rules. You're going to need God's Spirit to guide you. You're going to need God to show up in your life. And so he's saying, this is about how people who have been transformed act. Okay? Because everybody who heard the Sermon on the Mount did not walk away changed. Everybody who heard this greatest sermon ever preached did not follow Jesus. Okay? And just because you're here, we're going to learn a lot about it, but it doesn't mean that we automatically become Christ followers. So he said, look, this is just not about me dumping information on y'all, showing y'all how gifted I am in oratory. Jesus says, this is really how transformed people behave. And the only way they can behave like this is that I am living my life through them. Because they can't live like this by themselves. Because Jesus said, y'all heard it said, eye for eye. Now, we're going to turn that around. You can't just turn that around by waking up one day and saying, I'm going to drop that eye for an eye. Because you know some of us today, if you come for me,
I'm coming for you.
Oh, right?
Yes.
And how do you change that? You need a power that's greater than you to transform you. So it's not just about rules of how we act, how, he said, now this really are people who've heard the voice of the King. And the King has empowered them to live a different kind of life. All right? To me, that was like, wow, isn't that? All right. Y'all gotta let me know when it's time to take the break, because I get into this stuff, I'm going, okay? Okay, so here's like a brief outline of what we're hoping to accomplish over these next 5 days. Hopefully you can see this. If you can't see it, let me explain it to you. We've been talking about a lot of today, the context that we're talking about. Number one, understanding the historical context of the Sermon on the Mount. We're going to get a little bit deeper into that in this session. Then number two, we're going to discover the kingdom worldview behind every command. And when you start realizing that everything Jesus says is purposeful. He's not just talking. He has a reason for sharing. And everything that he will share is basically chipping away at the world system. Okay? Number three, learn how Jesus fulfilled, not abolished the law. This is what a lot of people think, and we talk about 36 different views. A lot of people thought that what Jesus was coming to do was to abrogate the law, to get rid of it. Jesus never advocated not following the law. He just said, some of the stuff y'all think about, you only think about it in a physical, material way. He said, but as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Number four, understand what real, authentic righteousness is. Okay? Number five, identify, and this is, we're going to see this a lot. Jesus is going to be attacking the hidden idols that are in each and every one of our hearts. He's coming for you. He's coming for me. All right? I want to let you know, by the time we finish up this intensive, Jesus will run each of us through the ringer. Because most of us will come here saying, I'm good. And by the time Jesus finishes, we will probably be laid out saying, woe is me. Number six, learn what practical kingdom living is. And finally, the last idea, and that means it is not more than we can dig on, but become equipped. find ways that we can live as disciples in today's culture. Okay? That's the goal. Okay? So, this is what I would say. You can write this down. Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapter 5, verse 7, can be summarized real simply. Okay? Here we're going to summarize it in 5 words. Okay? Be transformed. Live the sermon. That's it. Be transformed. Live the sermon. Don't just hear it. Live it. Okay? If we are changed and we live the sermon, we will become magnetic. We will become attractional. People love to see people who are actually living out something in a real way. You know, people talk about Christianity, and one of the big knocks we have today is that we have a bunch of people who are not authentic, who are fakes, you know, who are Christians in name only, you know. Okay, well, all right, I'll leave that right there. All right, so that's it. Be transformed, live the sermon. Okay? Okay. Now, suppose you're there in Capernaum, somewhere near Galilee, and Jesus has ascended this mountain. And understand, when Jesus teaches, they don't have light systems that put up for him to be on the stage and have it lit up. He preached, it was daytime. Think about this. That he could have commanded a crowd of 5,000 men. All right? At a time when most men were day laborers. Think about that. Now, you think about the fact that when people were day laborers in that day, a day's wage may be a penny. Not our penny. But you think of what a day's wage is. You think about the standard of living when Jesus was around. And if you can imagine 5,000 men, besides women and children, taking off and assembling themselves on the side of a mountain near a lake just to hear him. Okay? This is not just people who are coming because they are curious. They're coming because it costs them something to come. Okay? Now, think about it. You got a lot of us today, you know, we're blessed to have a job. A lot of times, you know, no matter how bad your job is, they give you some sick time, right?
Yes.
They're giving you what they call vacation time. Anybody ever have vacation time?
Yes.
Anybody ever have a job where they gave you personal days?
Yes.
Thank God for unions negotiating these contracts. You know, you get personal days. Sometimes it's not a holiday. Sometimes, it's just, you just don't want to go to work. You just, I'm going to take a personal day.
That's right. That's right.
And somebody going to pay you
Yes.
to stay home
Yes.
or do a side hustle. Imagine Jesus' day. If you went to hear him, he preached in the daytime. He didn't come on at 7 o'clock. He preached in the daytime. He assembled people on sides of mountains. Crowds thronged to hear him. And it cost them. And we don't think about the cost. Okay? Because they didn't have cable. They didn't have YouTube. They didn't have podcasters. If you wanted to hear Jesus, you had to go to where he was. And since he wasn't preaching on CBS, he preached in the daytime. And if you are laboring, what that means? You go up to the boss, can I get one on personal days?
Right.
I mean, the day, it was okay, I'm just going to take the day off. I'm just going to chill. I'm just going to go down here and hear this concert in the park. No, this costs people livelihoods to hear this man who is preaching something that is so radical. So a lot of times he would say stuff and folk would walk away and not get it. Remember when Jesus taught, many times his disciples would come to him after he preached and say, Master, what was that all about?
Yeah.
Now you know if they didn't get it. Alright? Alright. So here's a supposition. Okay, write this down, okay? What if everything you believed about success was backwards? What if everything you believed about success was backwards? Would that affect you? I mean, what if you got it wrong? Talk to me. What if what you believed about success was backwards? Would that affect you?
I think it would shake your faith.
Shake your faith. All right. Anybody else?
Confusion.
Confusion.
Confused.
Confused, right?
Confused.
Anybody else?
Disappointed.
Disappointed. That's a good word. Yeah. So you just took off. You have been paid today. Okay, you got children, you got family, and you took off because you want to hear the rabbi. Then he started talking stuff about the way up is down. He started talking about if you want to be great in the kingdom, you got to be the least. Reversing the order of stuff that you always thought was the way to get success. And he tell you, no, you heard it said, but that's not the way it works in this kingdom. And somewhere halfway through the message, you probably sitting there like, I took the day off. I'm not getting paid. And he telling me to love my enemies. You know, the guy who just took my promotion.
That's hard.
Can I ask y'all something first?
Yes.
Anybody with us online? You got?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Tell them I said hi. All online viewers, God bless y'all. All right. He got want to raise this question to you. Okay. Can y'all be honest with me? Because you know what? Whenever I teach Christian, I know that they're gonna give me Christian answers. But every now and then, since the little bit Jackson, I slip one of these worldly questions to me. What teachings of Jesus make you most uncomfortable? Yeah. Love the enemy. Yeah, that's the tough one.
Right now.
Y'all should see me in association this weekend. What teachings of Jesus make you most uncomfortable? Yeah.
I don't know if it's the same term, but turning the other cheek.
Turning the other cheek.
Yeah.
Ooh.
They slap me to turn the
Ooh, I can feel that from up here.
Yeah.
She said they slapped me and I had to back up. What if somebody does something like spit on it? See, some stuff I can deal with, right? And, you know, they wait on Jesus? And he telling people, come on, be a part of my kingdom. Anybody online? What teachings of Jesus make you most uncomfortable? Anything else about what he said? That you just, that's about all that makes you uncomfortable. Nothing else he said gets under your skin? Money. Ooh. Wow. Anybody else? I mean, because if those are only 3 or 4 issues that make us uncomfortable, then we might as well just adjourn the class and give everybody a certificate and say congratulations.
This line right here, blessed are the people who insult you and persecute you and falsely say all kinds of evil things against you. I think that's hard to take.
Yeah, that's hard to take. Yeah. That's, matter of fact, that's one of those what we call beatitudes. Okay? Attitude with a B-E on the front of it.
That's a hard
one
to take.
Ooh, we're going to get into that.
Central Park 5.
Central Park 5. What about me? I'm just Now, here's the rub, okay? Jesus said, it's going to be hard for you to be a part of my kingdom. And not one of the things that I say that are going to be offensive. He said, many of you will be offended because of me. He recognized that because what he was saying was, he was talking an upside down world to an upside down world in an upside down kind of way. He was turning things on their head. Okay? And that's offensive. Right? So, in your private time, most of us would probably acknowledge, God, there's some stuff I can't deal with that you deal with. There's some people I can't handle. Now, I'm good with most people for about 5 minutes. Some folk I don't want to go to their house and eat.
Amen.
Oh, Lord. See, I thought they were going to be honest with me.
Amen. That's honest.
But,
That's true.
but Jesus said some stuff in this sermon. It's like, it should offend and make all of us uncomfortable because he's asking us to divest ourselves of things, to give up things, to take on things, to do things that are honestly not always perceived in our best interests. If they compel you to walk 1 mile, walk an extra mile. If they take your coat, give them your outer garment also. Jesus, you mean if they come in and force me as a Roman soldier to carry their weapon a mile, that I should volunteer and say, hey, I'll go another mile. If they come in and constrict me, or if they come in and forcefully take from me my food, or take my garment that is keeping me warm, then I should give them my inner garment. You like this one? Here, take that. You're like, man, you know how much this cost me? You know, I got this from Macy's. I got this from Blooming's. Come on, I got this from Ross and Rack. Come on. And I'm going to get. Yeah, if they want that, give them more. Most of us be saying, Perry, get lost. You crazy now. You were preaching before, but now you want me to. See, stop talking about you can't love God and money. See, what kind of sermon you preaching? Okay. All right. Here's the question. I want y'all to react to this, okay? Can someone be successful, and here's the key word, by American standards, and unsuccessful by kingdom standards?
Yes.
Explain. Explain.
I believe in the worldly sense of what American standards is about being successful, power, money, control, all the good things that people believe that makes them successful and powerful. That doesn't make you it can make you unsuccessful by kingdom standard because it also brings greed
Okay.
and other things that is unworldly. And when you in that American standard of what we can consider success, and I'm not being mean about it, but when you're up there and you look for power and you look for money and prestige, a lot of times you forget what is true in the kingdom. Because that's not what God is looking for. That's not the success that he's looking for. He's looking for the presence of the light in you, not that we feed off the greed and being powerful and stuff like that.
All right, you make some good points. So let's go back and raise this question. Are we, how to put this good? Are we, as having dual citizenship? Okay, that's great. You know you got dual citizenship. You're a citizen of the kingdom of heaven, and then you're also citizens of America, of this world, okay? Now, America has a standard, right? Should you ascribe to the standard?
The American standards?
Yeah. I mean, should you want to have a home? Should you want to have a job? Should you want to have health care? Should you want to have some of the finer things?
Yes.
And is that at odds with this other thing?
No.
So talk to me.
I think it's how you go about getting it.
If you're getting it underhandedly, then no, it is not successful because you got it on a crooked standard. And unsuccessful by kingdom of standards, I don't think God would be pleased with that because his standard, his ways is not our ways.
Okay.
Everything that we do, he see, he hear. So he already knows what we're trying to do and what we're going to do before we even do it. So his standards, his standards is unsuccessful. I would think, very unsuccessful.
Tiffany, I see your hand.
I was going to say it has to be rooted in kingdom standards in order to maintain longevity. I just feel like it has to be rooted.
I think that what Jesus is pushing us toward is this inevitable clash between kingdoms. That the kingdoms stand alongside each other. But the question is, can they coexist with each other?
I think that if you have the kingdom standards, you can use the American standards to help uplift the kingdom.
Say some more. I like that. That's just an idea. Yeah. You want to say some more about that?
Yeah, because I feel like if you have the kingdom standards, you can reach the American standards and help uplift the kingdom. Because the kingdom is not going to let you get to American standards unless you feel like you reach that point.
Now, here what Jesus might say is that if you're in this standard, you can't be in both kingdoms. But the kingdoms are in opposition to each other, not just alongside. And so Jesus comes along and gives his manifesto and says, this is how kingdom people live. The understanding, if you heard that in the first century, you begin to add up things and say, oh, now I understand why the Roman system doesn't work for me. Any of y'all know people who could testify that when they were in the world system worked for them? But when they gave up the citizenship in the world system and became a citizen of the kingdom of heaven, all hell broke loose. The system that used to work for them started aligning against them, and people start saying, when it rains, it pours. I can't get a break. I don't know what's happening. The problem with some of us is we don't realize that we have changed our allegiance. Some of us are still trying to have allegiance to the American standard and want to walk in the kingdom. Yeah, have it both ways. Okay? So, we're not saying, Jesus is not saying, divest yourself of your pension. He's not saying you shouldn't have a house. But he said, understand that these kingdoms have different values, different norms. And if your standard is the American standard, then that cannot jive with the kingdom standard. But a lot of times Christians have problems with this because they say Jesus is saying, okay, if you're in the kingdom, you can't have anything. You gotta be poor. You gotta swear a vow of poverty. But there are rich people in the kingdom. All right. Y'all didn't know that, right? Yeah. Y'all thought only the poor, because you're going to find this later on in the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus starts saying things like, blessed are the poor. In spirit. Luke talks about it, and Luke gives out these same Beatitudes. Luke said, blessed be ye poor. So when I was growing up, the folk that I went to church with, they didn't quote Matthew chapter 5, verse 3 and following. What they started quoting was Luke. Because Luke said there was something blessed and redemptive in being poor. Jesus said, no, I'm talking about poor in spirit. A lot of our folk, who I grew up with, they grasped and thought that Jesus was talking about material. So you can give away everything you have to the poor and still miss heaven. And this messes you up, isn't it?
Yes.
It messes me up too, to be honest.
Yes.
Anybody online want to say anything? Have you got any comments? Okay, all right. Well, if you're online, you got a question, we're waiting on you. We'll take your questions. I hope you're getting this, okay? All right, now, here's a question. I want you to think about this, okay? Because this whole manifesto that Jesus talks about is, this is how kingdom people, this is how they act in the kingdom. What part of your personality, not the word, I don't think about your sister, your brother. What part of your personality has Jesus had the hardest time changing?
My afterness. I'm stubborn.
Oh, you stubborn?
Yeah.
Did you just figure that out since birth?
No.
I'm just gonna go over here and do my little laugh. So what part of your personality has Jesus had the hardest time changing? Yes, ma'am.
Being patient.
Patient.
And I'm still working.
Sometimes people just try you, right? Yeah, because when people find out that you're citizens of this new kingdom, they start working on your patience. They start saying, oh, we know, because people have an intuitive sense of what they think kingdom people should act like. So there's not pride in you justifying out of your kingdom material. Alright? So when you go back to cussing, go back to lying, cheating, stealing, you want to be a kingdom person. Alright? Anybody, what part of your personality has Jesus had the hardest time changing? Or you just gave it all to him? You just did a radical makeover? You know, the old folks say the person I used to be, I'm not that person no more. Things I used to do, places I used to go. And then you find out that they're so old, they got a walker, they can't do, yeah, that's why they're not doing the things they used to do. They're not going to, because now they do that, they got to get, they got to get liniment rubbed on them, and they got to, oh, I'm sorry. All right. All right.
I think mine's got to do with the part about I can forgive, but I just can't forget it.
All right. Well, here's a good thing. Here's a good thing to remember. God gave all of us a memory. Okay? So when we get to the Decembers of our lives, we have memories of the flowers of life. God never equated forgiveness with loss of memory. And if you're waiting for the memory to go away,
It's not.
No, that's part of it. I think for the fact that that just not forgetting, but I tend to
well, you still
shy away. I just stay away. So if you did something and I didn't forgive, I forgave. I said, okay, I'm gonna say much. Okay, I forgive you. I can speak to you, but I don't see you in the same light. So my thing is that I tend to
Shy away.
and just I just don't want to be in your, I don't want to be in your space.
What do you say? Oh, well, okay.
Yeah, you know, sometimes if you're working with people or they even family members, it's kind of it's kind of hard not
To avoid them.
you know, but still be how you. They say good morning, I say good morning, but you can see that like.
All right, okay.
They
She don't want to duck down behind the car, but she see him
Somebody
coming.
told me, well, sometimes you gotta let it go, and sometimes that's the problem. I can't let it go. I mean, I'm not gonna deal with you. I just let it go.
Here's the thing. And you bring up a very good point. Is that in the kingdom, in Jesus' kingdom, his citizens forgive because they have been forgiven. They let go because God has let go of some of the stuff they did. And when we start looking at it like, okay, if I believe God forgave me, why can't I let go
That's what I'm saying.
of what somebody did to me? Okay? And so that becomes one of those things where we start looking at our ID. And if we're real citizens of this kingdom, Jesus is radical, that you've heard it said eye for eye. But I'm saying in my kingdom, we don't have retribution. We don't have revenge tours. We don't say I'm going to get even. So that's the inner struggle where we have to go back to God. And, you know, some of the hardest things is to acknowledge to God that God, I need your help in letting this go. Because if God held on to what we did,
Have mercy.
That's just hardest part.
right. Okay. All right. Here's a question for you, okay? If Jesus preached this sermon in the America that we live in today, who would be offended first?
Non-believers.
Oh, you think the non-believers?
No.
I ain't saying nothing. I'm just asking. Who do you think would be offended first? Because we know who was offended when he preached it first.
Believers, yeah.
It was the religious people. So you think it's then an off chance that maybe some new hope group,
No.
Nah, I'm not gonna do on. They gonna do.
I just think to be skeptical about it. You know, they.
Who's that?
What's that word?
Skeptical.
Yeah, about his, suspicious.
Okay. Well, understand this. Remember when Jesus first preached this, right? The biggest pushback he got was from the religious people.
That's right. Pharisees and Sadducees.
You know, the common guy on the street was like, man, that one man spoke like this. He great. They said, man, it's more expedient for us that one man die than we lose the whole kingdom. They plotted to kill him.
Yeah, true.
They thought they was losing power.
Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised if Jesus preached this today if the people who would yell and scream most would be church people.
Oh, wow.
Because he's insensitive. You know? He's out of step with reality. You know, he got this personal agenda. You know, he just hates people. He's against trans. He's against this. He's against that. You know, I can see church people hollering, going around and stuff like down with Jesus. Yeah.
You know, like you hear some people, they have no horn, they have their music on, and they be preaching about Jesus on the corner or something. You're not thinking about this. Oh, that was Jesus out there with a preacher. People walking past him like they don't know that. Oh, shut up, man. You don't know stuff.
Well, but that's what Jesus said.
Yeah.
That's the culture we live in today.
That's what I'm talking about.
Jesus would not get a voice in the culture. Do y'all know that every time that the House and the Senate open, they open with prayer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Start fighting.
And then they fight each
Start
other.
fighting from the door.
Then they lie.
They have a chaplain. All right? Yeah. Now, that deliberative body won't open without prayer, and then they just hate on each other.
Exactly.
So we got to start thinking. If Jesus preached this sermon in the present day America, it might be the church who comes for him. Because he just meddling, just trying to, you know.
I think if it's the church come for him, I think that would be for the fact that he's revealing to them who they really are.
Yeah, but how many of us really like people to pull cover on?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
To uncover who we really are? To get on national television and tell our business?
So they wouldn't, you're right, they wouldn't want
Let me help y'all with this, because some of us have a hard time connecting. When the Pope said that America should not go to war against people who will not provoke them in war, the Vice President of the United States of America said that the Pope needs to deal with
Religious.
theology. He's a theologian. Stay out of theology. Then tell us stay out of politics. J.D. Vance said the Pope's place is not in theology. He's a Catholic, critiquing his own leader of the Roman Catholic Church.
In other words, he's a theologian.
Jesus would have said the same thing the Pope said. And they would have told him, stay in your lane. Now, interesting to me that they told the Pope that his lane was not theology.
Yeah, right.
That makes sense, right?
I'm like, y'all, like telling Jesus, you're not supposed to talk about God. So we got a present day example of somebody like Jesus saying that you have heard it said, but the Pope said you're not supposed to go to war with people who aren't warring against you.
That's right.
Be quiet, church.
Yeah.
We don't want to hear that. You should be supporting us.
No.
This is what the leaders of the government said to their own head of their church.
They don't want to be revealed.
All right?
They don't want nobody to follow too.
That's true. So here Jesus makes this point, okay? And we all, this is all, believe me, we're still in the introduction to the sermon.
Amen.
So, is Christianity primarily about going to heaven, or is Christianity about bringing heaven to earth? What do you think?
Bringing heaven to earth.
It's about going to heaven or bringing heaven to earth. What's your point of view? A little bit of this, a little bit of that, less of that.
Bringing heaven to earth.
Oh, I'm sorry. So Jesus said, here's the question. Is Christianity about going to heaven, or is it about bringing heaven to earth? Jesus gives this initial sermon and says, the kingdom of heaven is here. It has arrived. Okay? So Jesus says, I'm not talking to y'all about going to heaven. That's an eventuality you get because you are a citizen of my kingdom. But what I want to talk about is what happens when heaven invades earth. We need an invasion. How many invasion of body snatchers?
Yes.
We need an invasion in our world today where God comes into our earth. And Jesus said it over 2,000 years ago, the kingdom is at hand, is here. Okay? All right. So let's look at the text. Seeing the crowds, this is verse 1 and 2, Matthew chapter 5. He went up on the mountain. Okay, we talked about how similar this is to what Moses did at Sinai. He goes up on the mountain. And when he sat down, which is the position for preaching, remember in Matthew chapter 4, when he comes home to Capernaum, he goes to the temple, they give him the book of the prophet Isaiah. He unfurls the scroll, and begins reading at the place where it says, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me. He sits down and he begins to break down the scripture. Here he is again, seated. Okay? And when he sat down, first his disciples came. So they were the closest and they were the most immediate hearers. So when we start unpacking this Sermon on the Mount, we know that it has application for at least two groups of people. The people closest to Jesus, and then the people who will make up the crowd. So the disciples sit down, and then, all right, he opens his mouth when he begins to teach. Okay? Now, we looked at some of these objectives earlier. Let me see if any of them. Okay. Okay. All right. We talked about the seventh and the purpose. Okay? So this is Jesus coming, really announcing his manifesto about the kingdom, the way it works. Because remember, before this, nobody ever talked about what heaven was like. Because everybody went to heaven and died. There's nobody to come back and say, this is how the kingdom works. Jesus come. He's the only one who's been up there who could come back and say, this is how the kingdom works. So we come back and say, all right, in the kingdom, this is what we do. Okay? And so the Beatitudes become what is an announcement. They announce there's something new in the world. Okay? We talk about upside down value of God's kingdom. And then later on we're going to see that Jesus starts connecting being a kingdom citizen and having kingdom character with having kingdom influence. And he uses this illustration of salt and light. The salt is only good when it's affecting something. Identify how these challenges, these teachings challenge our culture today. We already talked about culturally how our culture today, if they heard this sermon, they would revolt. If Jesus got up today in the house of the Senate and said what he said, you know what they would call for? An immediate censor. Somebody would call for articles of impeachment and have him thrown out for such radical ideas. And then we want to commit at the end of the week to living out these Beatitudes. Okay?
Yes.
All right. Some opening questions. We dealt with some of them. Let's see if we can unpack a little bit more. Here's a question for you. In light of what we've already talked about, can you be blessed and broke at the same time?
Yes.
Oh man, I didn't know I was going to get such a resounding answer. All right, let's ask this other question. Can you be blessed and grieving?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, let me ask it a different way. Has anyone ever been blessed and broke?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
You've been blessed and broke?
Yeah.
You know what Steve Harvey said? This is my show. I'm going to hear you. All right. I'm sorry for my online host. These folks are cracking me up every day. Well, let's go to number 3. Can you be blessed and persecuted? All right, here's a question we just started dealing with. Let's see if we can deal with it a little bit more. Has American culture influenced our definition of blessing more than Jesus has? Has the culture's definition of blessing been the culture's definition of blessing been influenced more by what we have in our culture than what Jesus said? Yes.
It was.
Uh,
But not now. Now that I know Jesus, the worldly culture of being blessed is not what Jesus said I'm blessed.
So now there's some songs out there, right? I'm blessed. It's a whole lot of blessings. Okay.
Blessed assurance.
Oh, blessed assurance, right? But a lot of times, and I must be honest, when I hear those songs, I'm really thinking that people are telling me something good happened. I still have a hard time of somebody saying I'm grieving and I'm blessed. I'm broke and blessed. I don't know, am I the only one struggling with that? Yes, ma'am.
I mean, I'm blessed because even though I'm broke, I still have a place to stay. I still have family, friends. I still have those who love me and care for me. I'm still blessed.
And we're blessed still because he woke us up. Our life is not our own.
I sound like old church people.
Yeah, well, we are.
He woke me up this morning.
That's right.
Yeah,
I started on my way.
because we didn't do it by ourselves.
Even blessing and
But
grieving.
I'm waking up broken.
table, Pastor. You got up when we didn't eat this morning.
Another thing.
All
I'm still in my right mind.
Right?
right. I'm persuaded. I'm persuaded.
Even with grieving, because
Right.
you're blessed in grieving, because as a fact, when my son passed, I still had my family and I had this church. I mean, and they was always
Exactly.
there for me. So I was blessed. A lot of people don't have anything, and
Right.
then people
Same
call me,
here.
tell me you're going to be okay.
Right.
It will take time. You know,
Right.
you will
We'll
get through it.
it. That's right. I'm a witness to that.
Okay, so number 5. I don't know if you can see it out there, but it says, what if God's greatest work in your life isn't changing your circumstance, but changing you?
Wow, that's deep.
What if God has caused this confluence of things in your life just to change you?
Yeah.
For the better.
I mean, if you change it, you're going to change you for the better, right?
Yeah. Thank God for
Thank
that.
God. The greatest work in
I mean, what if God has been working behind the scene and says, Perry, I'm not going to change your circumstance, but I'm bringing all of this about to change you? What do you say to that? But I'm like, God, why don't you change my circumstance? Listen, I don't want to change your circumstance.
give you a
I believe when he changed you, when he changed me, he changes my circumstances.
All right. What about those who are online? What if God's greatest work, right, in your life isn't changing your circumstance, but changing you? Now, if that's the case, then it may mean for some of us that we have to take another look at our lives and the circumstances of our lives and in our lives, and start looking at them from a kingdom lens instead of from a lens that says whether or not I'm successful or not. Because God may be working all this together to do something in me, not just for me. You make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
makes sense.
Makes sense.
Number 6 at the top right. What's more difficult? Changing your behavior or changing your desires?
Behavior. I think it's behavior.
Let's put it like this. What's more difficult? Changing how you act or changing what you want?
Changing what I want.
So either way is hard.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So that's, some people say it's their behavior, some people say it's their desire.
I think with desires that could change with you every other day or something, because a lot of people desire a fancy car or stuff like that, and if you you could change it. It's like, I'm not gonna get that fancy car, so that sedan is gonna have to be it. So that's I can change the desire, but sometimes the behaviors are difficult. So because that's changing something within you, and I know you're supposed to work on that, but it's not always easy.
Right, which is part of your personality.
You stretching your recreation. Okay, good. Okay, so let's skip down to number 9. If everybody in our church lived Matthew 5, 1 to 16 for 1 year, what would change? Just 1 year, next 12 months. If everybody in church lived out Matthew 5, 1 to 16, what would change?
More people will be speaking to each other, I guess.
Yeah, I guess they would start talking to each other.
Yeah.
Right?
To each other.
Yeah.
More empathy.
More empathy, more love.
They would show more connection to each other.
You think we'd be better? You think we'd be the same? You think?
No, we would be, I think we would be
They
better.
lived it.
But, yeah.
Be better.
Better? Okay.
If we lived it.
And then finally, number 10, if Jesus examined your life, and we want to keep the emphasis on ourselves, would he find more evidence of his kingdom or the culture around you? Okay, if he looked at you today, would he find more evidence of his kingdom or the culture around you? Okay, now we hope he might find.
Yeah.
But the question is, if he examined you, your life, would he find more evidence of his kingdom or the culture around you? What say you?
I think it's a standoff.
Hopefully the king.
Hopefully it'll be his more, well, I'm just gonna be honest, it might be a standoff there.
All right.
He's holding it at bay.
Okay.
Pushing further out.
Okay, so we want to be better. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm proud of that. Okay. All right, so here we go. Okay? So, the second amount, as we finish up on this prologue of this intro, is first of all, Jesus, he sees. And understand Jesus in his ministry, and we'll see this throughout his ministry, a lot of times he's able to be compassionate, be empathetic, and to help people because he sees them. Okay? Interesting thing about this text is that he says he sees the crowd. A lot of times we just see people. We don't see individual needs. We don't see hurts. We don't see, we just see throng. Jesus sees the crowd, okay? And notice that Matthew is intent on telling us that Jesus has movement. Okay? He goes up the mountain. Okay? He's not going to stay where he is, he moves. Okay? And then he sits down. So, he goes up the mountain and he teaches with authority. In fact, it is said about him after this sermon that folk were saying, we've never heard anybody teach like this man. He doesn't cite other sources. He said, I say to you. He said, I'm the source. I'm the authority. All the other rabbis quoted other rabbis who were dead. Jesus said, no, I say to you. So he taught with authority. He was like Moses. Okay? He sits down to teach the people. And the king explains what kingdom people look like. Because understand, this kingdom is different. They see the kingdom at work in Rome. But he tells them, okay, my kingdom, we're a little bit different. Okay? Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount reminds us that there is a difference between attracting a crowd and making disciples. Because he can attract crowds, but his idea is he wants to make subjects. He wants to bring people in his kingdom and act like they're his citizens. So, and we got to be careful because we live in the era of the mega churches, of the, large churches, mid-sized churches, and we get caught up in numbers and crowd sizes. But Jesus is about making disciples. A lot of times we just want to see the attendance numbers rise. Jesus wants to transform people's lives. That's a lot different. Okay? Now, turn with me in your Bible to Matthew chapter 4. I want to show you something. Now, at the end of Matthew chapter 4, we get Jesus going throughout Galilee in verse 23, teaching in the synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and sickness among the people. Verse 24, news about him spread all over Syria, and people brought to him all who were ill with various diseases, those suffering severe pain, the demon-possessed, those having seizures, and the paralyzed, and he healed them. Listen to verse 25. Large crowds from Galilee the Decapolis, that's the 10 cities, Jerusalem, Judea, and the region across the Jordan followed him. Okay?
Yes.
Now, in chapter 4, we end with the crowds. Chapter 5, where the first thing we see is Jesus sees the crowd. Okay? Which begs for us the question again. What is the difference between attracting a crowd and making disciples? Because this is all undergirding this sermon, okay? Jesus is not just into large crowds. He wants to change the people who are in the crowds to become followers. Our churches are suffering today because we have learned the lesson of attraction, but we have not learned the lesson of transformation. So we got a lot of folk who come to church and they leave church the same way they came. They don't act like kingdom citizens. Okay? They act like they, in the world, do what the world says, whatever. But Jesus says there is a difference between attracting a crowd and making disciples. Ergo, we have discernment. Okay? Jesus goes up the mountain. Now, I want to share this illustration with you. We got Moses on the left, and we got Jesus on the right. Okay? Moses goes up the mountain, and he gathers Israel. Now, if you go to Exodus 19 and follow, and you find out how he gathered them, and it was like 3 tiers of people. The priests, the Levites, the leaders. And after that, then the people came. Jesus, when he goes up on the mountain, he gathers his disciples first, then the crowd. Okay? Now, he could have very well had his disciples interspersed in the crowd, but he recognizes that what he's about to say is going to be important for his disciples to understand. So he has them closest to him. And remember, Jesus throughout his ministry, he had 3 guys who were real close. He had a group that were called the disciples. They were 12. And then he had a group of 72 that he sent out. So he had large groups of people. But when he wanted to impart special truth, he would gather them closest to him, and then the crowd would fill in around his closest disciples. All right? And then, when Moses went up on the mountain, what happened as a result, they had a community that was formed based on a covenant, an agreement between God and the people. We call them the 10 Commandments. Jesus goes on the mountain and he starts a new community and he calls it the kingdom. And the kingdom is being formed based on who he is and what he's done. All right? Now, in light of this, let's put our thinking cap and ask ourselves a question. What we know so far, if we just in verse number 1, what might Matthew be communicating to us about who Jesus is? Think about it. What might Matthew be communicating about who Jesus is? Him. He's greater than Moses. In fact, what Matthew is really hinting to the people, there's a new Moses. Okay? This is deep kingdom stuff because this man is greater than Moses. He walks like Moses. He brings the people up on the mountain. He sits them down in order. He opens his mouth and teaches them. What Moses taught the people was what God had inscribed with his finger. What Jesus shared with the people was what came from him himself. He's greater than Moses. Moses had tablets. Jesus said, I am the living word. So Matthew is saying to the people, Jesus, like Moses, but he's greater. Okay? Moses got his instruction from God. Jesus, who is God, taught with divine authority. Jesus never said, let me quote somebody. All right? He sat down. Okay? We talked about it before. Sitting down was the way you authoritatively taught people. So when the rabbi got the scroll, he sat down and he would teach. Okay? So Jesus announces God's kingdom. So the Beatitudes, where, blessed are the poor, blessed are the meek, blessed are those who hunger, we call those the Beatitudes, are more gospel announcements than they are these self-improvement formulas. So when we talk about these Beatitudes, we're not talking about a formula that said, if you do this and do this and do this, you'll be a kingdom person. What Jesus is really saying is, I'm ushering in a new kingdom. It's different than the old kingdom. In my kingdom, the poor in spirit are preferred over the wealthy. Okay? Okay? Complete this sentence. I want my folks online to help me with this too, okay? Here's the sentence. Okay, you ready? Here we go. I know I'm blessed when. I know I'm blessed when. When God wakes you up every morning. I can't even argue with that.
That's right.
That's good stuff. Anybody else? Anybody online? I know I'm blessed when. Anybody in the audience?
I'm in my right mind.
When you're in your right mind.
In my right mind.
All right, now watch that. Watch me now. Watch me now. Remember what we talked about earlier on what the definition of blessed is.
Yeah, that's right.
Blessed is regardless of my circumstance.
Right.
So I may have all times, whatever, however you pronounce it, right? I might not be in my right mind. Does that mean I'm not blessed?
No.
Sister Linda, yeah.
I said, I'm blessed when I go through things and I come out and I know the Lord is with me.
All right, all right, all right. All right. Okay, so the first three Beatitudes. Let's look at them real quickly. Here they are. The poor in spirit, those who mourn, and the meek. And we're going to deal with the hunger and thirst a little bit later, okay? Okay? So, when Jesus begins to preach, the first word out of his mouth is blessed. Okay? Now, who is blessed?
Poor in spirit.
The poor in spirit. What does that mean? What does it mean to be poor in spirit?
Don't believe.
Don't believe? Okay.
Empty.
I didn't hear you.
Empty.
Empty. Okay, that's a good way to look at it. Okay.
Or they don't know who God is.
All right. Now, you and I, we never heard Jesus. But this is first sermon. This is trial sermon. This is initial sermon. He's been called, he's coming out, he's preaching. This is first sermon. You took the day off, you're not getting paid. And he's saying, bless are poor in spirit. What you make of that? Now, Jesus is really inferring something, okay? And this is, we talk about the 36 ways to interpret this. This is one way to interpret it. Look at it like this. It's recognizing when you pour in spirit that I don't have what I need within myself. I'm poor. I'm going to need somebody to help me. I'm poor. Spiritually, I'm in a deficit. Okay? And so Jesus says, first thing about the kingdom is you got to understand that the kingdom starts where self-sufficiency ends. When you get to the end of yourself, you are now at the front door of the kingdom. As long as you can manage it, take care of it, deal with it by yourself, you're never going to be poor in spirit. You're never going to be in enough need to come to God and say, I need your help. But he's saying kingdom principle is the kingdom begins where self-sufficiency ends. And that's why a lot of us can't get to God, because we don't need him that much. Let me help you. Some folks, when they get sick, you know, they go to God. You know, let me be honest with you. A lot of folks, when they get sick, they don't even go to God when they get sick. You know what all of us do when we get sick? We get a second opinion. We get a second opinion. And it's not until that second or third opinion agrees with the first opinion. Then we go on Facebook and say, pray for me. Oh. Brethren, can y'all lift me up in prayer? Then when we get to the end of ourselves, then we realize our lack of sufficiency and we become poor and desperate in our spirit. Then we start reaching out for this new thing, reaching out for this Christ. But because many of us are already sufficient, many of us are Christ-proof. Oh, Lord, thank you for that. You know, Brent and I, we sell, from time to time, battery. Hold on a second, I can find out why this thing ain't doing that. One thing that we learned when we were selling, helping people with insurance, is that insurance is really about protecting risk. Okay? So when you got a risk that's too big for you to bear, you get somebody else to help you assume that risk. And that's why we have house insurance. Because if the house catch on fire, for many of us, it's a risk that we can't replace it. So we get insurance to help us to withstand that risk. A lot of times, if you're the only soul breadwinner in your house, if something happened to you, then your family can't survive. So what do? You go out and you get something to protect your risk. You get life insurance, all right? We tell people all the time, you know, we would run into people and they'd be like, I don't need this much money in my family. I said, you don't really want them to survive after you leave here. That's what you tell them. You want them to struggle so they can remember you. Remember, Daddy was a rolling stone. All he left us was alone. But now it's about insurance. It's about protecting those folk who are going to be here after you have gone. And so what many of us have done is that we have accumulated so much of this world's good that we will never be poor in spirit. Because whatever we need, we can supply. We spiritual situations where we don't need God's insurance. Because after all, if something happened to us, we don't have to call God. We can just go to the bank. I don't know why I'm making no power. Hold on a second.
Thank you. Oh, did you give me,
Okay, so Jesus says you need to be poor in spirit. And you only become poor in spirit when you recognize that you're not sufficient to take care of yourself. That you're going to need God on your side. Some of us can't get to that place because we don't have those kind of needs. But when we get sick, when we lose what we've had, many of us get to the place where we become poor in spirit because now we don't have anything to depend on except God. Okay? And I'm not here to suggest that God will take something from you to make you dependent on Him. But He said, blessed are those who are poor in spirit, who recognizes that their self-sufficiency is not enough, that they need God in their lives. Because when you're like that, then you have the kingdom of heaven. Okay? All right. So, blessed are the poor in spirit, because for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Okay? So, here's a question we raised before. Just to reset on the same question. Can you be materially wealthy and poor in spirit? Can you be materially wealthy and poor in spirit?
I believe so.
Yes, I believe.
Let me ask one more time, because for the benefit of the old y'all who can't hear. Can you be materially wealthy and poor in spirit?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So, the answer is a resounding yes. But we need to be careful that we don't start relying on our material wealth, which then makes us particularly poor toward God. But the person who recognizes that they are poor in spirit, that their material wealth can't supply everything they need, to them belongs the kingdom of heaven. Okay? Not the person, we're not talking about taking the vow of poverty, giving everything he got to the church. That's not what he's talking about. But he's saying to the person that recognizes that their material wealth is not enough as a citizen of this kingdom to bring them into the kingdom, that they need God. So you can have wealth, but still know that you need God. Okay?
Yes.
Now, here's another question. Can you be materially poor and spiritually proud?
Yes.
I'll let y'all wrestle with that on your own. Okay? So I got a case study for you, okay? So I'm going to talk about this case study, and I'm going to ask you to just get in two different groups, and we're going to talk about it, okay? We got enough to break off in two groups, and then we're going to talk about this case study. So here's a case study, okay? That's Marcus. Okay, hey, Marcus, okay? Marcus is a successful Christian. Okay? This is not an anomaly. He's a successful Christian. Okay? He has success by the world standard, but he had very little kingdom appetite. The question that we want to raise in our groups is he blessed? According to who? Which beatitude exposes his greatest need? What would kingdom success look like? And what would you say to Marcus? Okay? So we just want you to get in two different groups. There are questions on the screen. Okay? Marcus has success by the world's standards, but he has little kingdom appetite. So we want to raise these four questions. Is he blessed? According to who? Okay? Which beatitude exposes his greatest need? And what would kingdom success look like? And fourthly, what would you say to Marcus? Okay? So just get it, two different groups. And we're going to take about 5 or so minutes, maybe about 7 minutes each. 7 minutes of this, and then we'll come back and talk to the group. Okay?
Hey, did Divine come out?
That's the one, two, three. Thank you. We have 1 minute. Wrap it up, 1 minute. Yes, sir. 30 seconds. Okay. 10 seconds.
But then,
All right. Thank you so much. For those online, we're getting ready to have a discussion. All right. We had a case study about Marcus, the successful Christian. He's success by the world standard, but little kingdom appetite. So we had 2 different groups. Y'all want to talk about it? First group.
Okay, we're discussing for the fact that we have a problem about him being a successful Christian and little kingdom appetite. I'm sorry. We was discussing for the fact that they put down that he's a successful Christian, but have little kingdom appetite. So where does that play into?
Right.
If you
So
have
you-
world standards, success by the world standards, the little kingdom appetite, you can't have both.
So we want to know how do you determine a successful Christian?
Y'all got to figure that out. So you say he's not a successful Christian?
No.
You can't be a successful Christian and say he has the success of the world standards, but little kingdom appetite.
So, which of the Beatitudes would expose that for Marcus?
Blessed are the poor in spirit.
Poor in spirit.
Yes.
And what kingdom success look like there? Since he doesn't epitomize it, what would you say it look like?
Well, kingdom success, he would believe in and actually act as if he needs God in his life in order to make it. He wouldn't just be successful by the world standards. He would have God acting in his life. And he would believe that.
Okay, so do y'all have any wisdom from Marcus? What would y'all say to him?
That he needs to strengthen his faith with God more. If he has little faith, that he needs to find himself a Bible-based church and get in there and strengthen his faith with God.
Next group, what do y'all say?
We said, is he blessed? That was our
Okay,
question.
yeah.
Is he blessed? We said yes. According to who? We said America.
You got to hold that mic in front of you. Because our people online need to hear.
Okay, but when you said he was blessed, according to America's world standards.
All right.
And he gathered to express his greatest needs. Which one?
We felt it was number 3. Blessed is the poor in spirit. It seems like he's even though he's successful, but it seems like he has put God on the back burner. And it seems like he has to go a little bit more of his time to God, Bible study, giving back to the community,
Okay.
making God a priority instead of being just chasing wealth.
So
What would you say to Marcus?
Join pastors, brings the Bible study with brothers. We said that. We said that. We said that. Be smart.
Okay.
Doesn't mean
So,
back to
so
the community.
let me ask you a question. How prevalent is a Marcus?
Every time.
Very common.
Yeah.
People who are successful by the world standard, they have little kingdom appetite. Are they, because Marcus, I'm assuming now, is a successful Christian, right?
That's right.
He goes to church, right?
Because that makes that determination.
So what?
What makes that determination that he's a successful Christian? That.
No, we know, we said, that's the case study for you to think about.
Right.
So according to what I'm hearing you say, you would say he's successful, you wouldn't call him a successful Christian.
You got it.
Right.
Okay,
That's what we were talking
That's
about.
where we got the
Right.
okay.
use the term.
Okay, because,
Okay, I get that.
I get that. But this is the dilemma, right? Because a lot of times, even church people, we see a young person in church, they got a good job, they're coming, and we say, okay, they got all the trappings, they look like they're Christian, but this not having an appetite for the kingdom or living the kingdom life really flies in the face of calling yourself a Christian. But we see this more and more. Okay? We get it right here. All right. So what do you think about that case study?
It was good.
All
It's
right.
something to think about. Yeah.
I think what stood out to me, I think what stood out to me in this case study is when I saw the part that says little kingdom appetite. I guess from a counseling perspective, I wanted to know what is he doing currently to have that little kingdom appetite. For instance, is it a situation in which he's just going to church every so often? And then I would start from that point forward, if you are going every so often, I would maybe encourage him to go more, or encourage him to read the Bible more, pray more. I want to start from where his appetite started and see how we can increase it in whatever way.
Okay, that's good. That's good. But I think that according to this case study, I would call Marcus poor in spirit.
Yes.
But there are a whole lot of people who are Marcuses or Marshalls or whatever you want to call them, right? They show up, they look successful by the world standard, they come to church, and we give them a kind of back for that, right? But they're still poor in spirit. They don't have the appetite for the kingdom. They don't want to live the kingdom life. So then we have to look at it. What do we say to them? You just can't say to Marcus, "Better get yourself together. You're gonna go to hell." I mean, that may be here, but we got to think, because there are more of these Marcuses and Marshalls than we know. All right?
So what do we,
That's what I'm asking y'all. That's a case study. What do we do?
Could we ask him, what is, you just come forward, what is it that's missing
What's missing?
inside of him that, or for the fact that what are you looking for, or what is,
Yeah, I think what we have to do is when we see Marcuses, Marshalls, those folk like that we embrace them. Okay? That we're not keeping them at a distance or making them feel safe. Sometimes we inadvertently make people feel safe in sacred spaces. They come here, we need to have a standard. We need to say, okay, this is where kingdom people act, this is where kingdom people live their lives. How many people come to church that don't know how Christians are supposed to live?
Yeah, true. There's a lot.
I mean, we don't think so, but I happen to know, a lot of folk who have been what we call the nuns. They've not ever been Christian. And then there's some of them who are the duns. They're done with Christianity. So when you talk to the Marcuses, the Marshalls who come to your church, you've got to embrace them, you got to talk to them, get them in an environment where they can start hanging around people who are living kingdom lives, so that they can know that this is how kingdom people live. Maybe Marcus hasn't been challenged in this faith. Maybe he's been taught that you give God a couple of dollars and you're good. But I think that we need to be more willing to embrace folk and get them in environments where they can see. You know, one of the things that my daughters, they go to church in Harlem, and they're always in group activities. They're always hanging out. I mean, they're always hanging out. I mean, they hang out more than, way more than the church people should be hanging out. I'm like, damn. But that's how you learn Christian values. You start rubbing shoulders with other Christians. And I keep thinking about it, we don't have a way to transmit that to people. If they don't hang out, how they going to learn what Christians do and how Christians live?
You know, Pastor, since you said it, because I always invite my friends to come to church, but there's always an excuse that why they can't come. And it usually got to do with one of my friends just told me, I always invite you, but you never, come, it could be anything. And she says that I don't want people looking at me. What you mean you don't want people looking at you? What did I ask her, what do you think they're going to see?
Well, if you get on the bus, they're going to look at you.
I think she talked about how she is or whatever, basically judging. I said, why are you just that church people always judging because she's like church people?
You know the sermon, that's in the Sermon on the Mount, right?
Yeah.
Judge not.
Yeah. So that's why a lot of times you have a hard time getting people. I always invite them to. I invited one for the 20th, the young preacher come out, so bring your kids, come on, son.
Oh yeah.
And they like, I gotta think about it. I said, what's the thing about? I said, this is.
You give them a free book bag. Come on.
It's just not that. I said, come here and support our young people. Our parents is looking. And it's like, they just.
All right. Well, thank y'all for taking part in that. And the thing about these case studies, we want to generate conversation because that's the nature of the case study.
That's right.
Everybody have a divergent view, people have different opinions, and it's something for us to just take home and think about during the day. Man, what if I run into a Marshall or a Marcus? What am I going to say to them? And does our church have spaces for folk who are marginal in their faith? So, Matthew 5:4 says, blessed are those who mourn. Okay? Now, I want to be real clear about this. This is deeper than just bereavement. Okay? So, Jesus taught in the kingdom, we should be living so that when things happen to hurt the heart of God, they ought to cause us to weep. Okay? And so here's the question. When was the last time something broke God's heart and broke yours too? When was the last time you cried about the situation in this world? I mean, every single day, and I hope you get this, I'm not exaggerating. You and I walk past people and go into the eternity with our God. When's the last time you wept for the sick? Because those who mourn are not just bereaved because they lost a loved one. They are mourning because they see that this world is devoid of God. That people are dying without Christ in their lives. That they're going to spend an eternity outside of the presence of Almighty God. And it causes them to weep. So when is the last time your heart broke for the things that God weeps over? A lot of times, we're like, they want to go to hell. who am I to get in their way? Who am I to judge their lifestyle? Who am I? You know, and so we stand on the sidelines and we watch our world, our young people. It's for some of us, we're not even emotional. You know? I remember, yes.
I know my heart is real bad for some of my relatives. Every day. I may not cry every day, but it aches because I know what road they're going down, what they're doing, and how they're not accepting God. And you know, when you accept God, you expect your loved ones to accept Him too, but they don't always. So it hurts sometimes, you know.
Well, let me harken you back to a day. Some of you online may remember this also. I came to Christ in the early 70s, so I'm ancient. I'm going to tell you how I came to Christ. Now, back in those days, Tiffany, we didn't call it calling Christ. We called it joining the church. My mother got us up one Sunday morning, and she made an announcement. Y'all joining the church today. No debate. Not come out of the blue. I know I was going to church, but I didn't know that was the day I was going to meet Jesus. Now, our pastor was Brother Grant Wilson. He'd been burned over like 60, 70% of his body, and he survived. And for me, getting up in front of the people was emotional. Now, y'all, nobody knew me better than me. I knew I liked to fight. I knew I liked to take things that weren't mine. Brenda, don't do this and all this. I knew I had some issues. And so, my mother told me we were going. So that meant me and my two older brothers, the three oldest ones of us, we was going. That was our Sunday. And I kept thinking about how messed up I was. How this man, I saw him put the people under the water. I didn't know whether he was going to pick me out of the water. I didn't know. I just cried. I just felt so bad. I remember feeling real bad. I'm like, God, I don't even know if you want me. So when I came crying, but I didn't feel the spirit. I was just like, man, he gonna put me under the water. He might not bring me back up. But I remember growing up, when folk came to church, they came with tears. They came with godly sorrow. They really felt bad for what they did. I started thinking, you know, my mother was a single parent. I know I gave her a hard time. All that stuff would flood over me, and I'm thinking, Lord, and she told me, you joined me today. People come to God today. We scan a QR code. We don't shed a tear. We don't act like we did anything worthy of salvation. But Jesus says, in my kingdom, when you are sorrowful, when you mourn, you bless. And we've lost that element. I don't know how we get it back. The elders would tell us. Some of the elders tell us, when they came to Christ, they came crying. They came sobbing. They came spitting. They came broken, wretched. Now people are like, they ain't gonna see me like that. Nah, man, y'all ain't gonna see me like that. I ain't gonna look like that. But they ain't gonna put me on Facebook like that. So people come, we come with our arrogance. We come with our pride. So here's what happens. The spiritually mature person doesn't simply ask what bothers me. What they start asking is, what bothers God? And when they find something that bothers God, they mourn. And when you can look at the situation of our world, of our community, of people who are lost, and not be bothered, that's why Jesus brings this manifesto and said, in the kingdom, you've got to mourn the condition of people who are unsaved, who are lost, who don't know their right hand from their left hand. Blessed are those who mourn, because then you get comfort. It is not just about bereavement. Y'all follow that?
Yes, yes.
I got one more, then I'm going to go. Right? Matthew 5:5. Blessed are the meek. Now, you know who was the meekest man in all Israel? Bible, Old Testament Bible quiz. Who was the meekest man in all Israel? Moses. The Bible said he was the meekest man in all of Israel. You know what Moses had on his rap sheet? Murder. Because meekness does not mean weakness. God said Moses was meek. Moses demonstrated he was not weak. He killed the man. Okay, let me put this graphic up here real quick. This is about a pastor. Pastor powerful. Okay? A respected pastor discovers that a young minister has criticized his leadership privately. So the pastor has enough power, influence, okay, that he can remove the young preacher. He can embarrass him. He can block his future opportunities. He can destroy his reputation. But you know what the pastor does? He invites this young minister into his office and asks him a question. Help me understand what you're seeing that I might not be seeing. Okay? That's me. He had power to destroy him. He could have criticized him in public. He could have put him in his place. He made, people say he would have been justified. But yeah, he takes the young man in his office and said, help me see. Help me to see and understand what I might not be seeing. Okay? Now, is that a weakness? No. Is it weakness? Yeah, you've been meek because he has power, but he chooses not to use it. It takes more restraint to have power and not use it. A lot of us want to get the power to use it, but what happens when you have the power, but you hold back and say, I'm not going to use it? I've just finished reading Maggie Haberman's book, Regime Change, and they talk about the president, how he got enamored with power. And because he had bombed Iran a year earlier and they did not respond, he thought if he laid the hammer down, they would just bow down and basically let him decide who's going to be their next leader. They begged him, don't do this, Mr. President. Haberman says that his chief of staff, Rubio, said they're going to close the Strait of Hormuz. His vice president said, I don't think we should do it. He said, they bow before, they bow again. So instead of using restraint, I'm going to drop the hammer on these folks. And now gas was over $4. Among other things. Is it wisdom?
Yes.
Is it avoidance? No, he doesn't avoid the young man. He goes to him and said, help me understand what you are seeing that I might not be seeing. Okay? So, when does meekness require confrontation rather than silence? When does meekness require confrontation rather than silence? All right? Because understand, just because you're meek doesn't mean that you let people walk on you. It doesn't mean you're a doormat. Okay? It means you recognize your authority and your power, and you can choose to wield it if you want to. Okay? That's one of the lessons Moses had to learn in the wilderness. Just because you got power don't mean that you use it. All right? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I see everybody online. We've come to a place where we're going to put a pin in it for our first intensive as we look at the Summer on the Mount, and we look at the backdrop and the first three of the Beatitudes. We'll pick it up tomorrow, 9 a.m. We'll say thank you for joining us. If you have any questions online, you can put them in the chat. We will, I got Dr. Tyler, Reverend Tyler over there, type it away. We'll respond to those. Again, we'll say thank you for joining us and thank you for being our live audience. All right? Yes, ma'am.
This mountain is any particular mountain? This wasn't Mount Sinai.
No. It was near Capernaum, near the Sea of Galilee. That's where he grew up. Okay, but it's not a name now. Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to ask this. It's amazing about the speech with him and Moses that they have big crowds, large fields of people. He's on a mountain. How can all those be forgiven?
Well, we happened to have been on the Sea of Galilee, and we were singing some serious songs, and the voice traveled.
Yeah.
Oh my! It's like an amphitheater. You on the sand on the shore of the lake, and basically the Sea of Galilee, right? It's down. The mountains are up, so it's like a bowl effect. So your voice goes up and out. You didn't need a microphone. The wind carried your voice. Yeah, and that one fascinating thing about going to Israel and seeing how those mechanisms work, he wouldn't need a microphone. Yeah. Good question.
Yes, because I would think the Spirit was delivering as he was saying, delivering.
Well, Moses same way. Oh, yeah. So, good point. All right, I think they got something for us to eat. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question.
Oh, when does meekness require confrontation rather than silence?
When you want to get down to the problem.
If you what?
When you want to get down to the problem or the answer to the problem.
Or when you want to get down to the problem and get an answer. Okay. But there may become times, okay, when we need to confront evil. You don't want the devil to just think that you're just going to let him walk over. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you got to stand up, and standing up does not make you non-Christian, doesn't make you not a believer. But you've got to just know when to wield your power. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. What do you say? No? Okay. Okay, so we'll pick up tomorrow and start looking at the fourth beatitude. Okay? Thank you so much. What? So what?
I think that's a really good question, and that's actually something that I struggle with in my life. I really don't know when to confront it. And I mean, I get what you're saying when you feel like.
Well, let's raise the question here. What's the pastor right in confronting this?
Yes. Yes, he was.
Should he have remained silent?
No, he should not.
Okay? So a lot of times when people are, Jesus will say later on, blessed are you when men revile you, persecute you, say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. Sometimes you may have to confront those powers. And sometimes you can make an internal decision and know I'm going to let it go. Then I don't believe there's a hard and fast rule that says you confront when it's like this or you're silent like that. I think that what the pastor does in this instance is perfectly correct. He, instead of letting it go, is giving a teachable moment for this young preacher so that he knows in the future that, you shouldn't go around, talking bad about the person who is covering you in leadership, or if you have an issue, pastor said, well, tell me what's going on so I can understand it. Maybe it's legitimate. But I don't think we can say hard and fast that there's a rule that says when it's X, you act meekly, when it's the other way, you confront it. But I think that we're led by the Spirit. Then the Spirit will allow us to confront. Paul confronted Peter on the way Peter dealt with the Gentiles. But he did it in the brotherly way, in the loving way as a brother in Christ. So I think that honestly, I take it on a case-by-case basis and recognize that there's sometimes that you want to confront stuff instead of just be quiet.
Yes, Pastor, you
Yeah.
a lot of humility. Probably was trying to.
Yeah, now this pastor could have used humility. I mean, I would not have criticized him if he decided that he did nothing. But he decided that he should confront it. Yes, ma'am, you gonna say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's always the way you confront the issue, how you handle it, that
Right.
makes the situation either better or worse.
So remember, as Christians, sometimes avoidance is not godly.
Exactly.
Sometimes we're called by God to stand up in places and speak out. But we have to use wisdom when we do. So I would say be prayerful, ask God to lead you, because there may be times when you sit on your hand, you're like, I don't want to say something, but then the Spirit may compel you to get up and to confront it. All right? That's the best answer I can come up with. All right? Okay, well, thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor.
Have a blessed